Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back for another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Friday, July 13th, and we have to play some Death Rattle cards. So, last time I was kind of just bouncing around looking at decks trying to find one with Death Rattle in it. This time I think I'm gonna play a little bit more logically and just look at every deck. Death Rattle, Death Rattle, Death Rattle. I need to play 5. There isn't a ton in Hand Druid. Let's see. Seems like there's... You know what I could probably do is just type in the phrase death, and let's see if this filter actually filters these cards. Nope, it doesn't. Alright, well that's good to know. Also, why do I have some cards I can disenchant? That's interesting. Let's see. I'm getting distracted here. Looking at new cards that are probably glitched out cards. Yeah. That I've had for a while. Well, on our Asian account, Tempo Mage, I don't believe had any real Death Rattle cards. I might be really stuck with playing Hand Druid. None of these HS replay decks really play Death Rattle, which is probably an admittance that the Death Rattle mechanic needs to be a little bit more powerful. Because if, as the way things go, let's see, there's like one Death Rattle card in there. I thought the Zoo Warlock would have been full of Death Rattle cards, and there aren't any in there. I doubt Rush Warrior has a bunch of Death Rattle cards. This probably is the first time also I've had a quest to play Death Rattle cards, and so it can certainly make sense why I wouldn't have needed it. Let's see, what's this custom paladin? Let's just get rid of this custom paladin and make it Death Rattle deck. Because I just don't feel like any of these are gonna work. So who would be good for Death Rattle? Hunter? Let's try it. I don't know if any of them are really good. That's part of the problem. Let's see. So death. I'm just gonna type in death and then trigger friendly minions. Death Rattle, Death Rattle. Let's see. Death Rattle. Gain the Death Rattle of a random minion in your deck. Interesting. So now as we're doing this, we'll play a bunch of really expensive Death Rattles. That I'm hoping are important and good cards. Random dragons. This. This. Probably need some really cheap Death Rattle cards too. We got about 2 more I can play. There you go. Let's try that and move on. And let's move on with the news. We've got a lot of news to cover, and last recording ended abruptly because I had to run to the bathroom. I feel like I'm getting worse and worse. I haven't been medically diagnosed with IBS, but I think I have IBS at this point, which is not really something that YouTubers should have.
The forest fights back.
Certainly, when I'm pre-recording footage, it's easier to go for 30 minutes. I guess the 30-minute instance there is also kind of helpful, where if I'm only recording for 30 minutes, then I can stretch it for I don't have to wait as long to end the recording.
Job done.
Compared to the live streams, which are, you know, hours and hours back to back. We've got a game on Steam called Rolling the Reef. It looks like MS Paint graphics, so that's all I really have to say about it. It's 15% off for the ridiculously high price of $6.79. It's a turn-based strategy game of some sort, it says, with procedural generation. To me, it looks like it's just kind of like a poorly thought out idea of a game that probably isn't worth playing twice, as far as the guess. Let's move on. We've got a lot of news today. There's another game on Steam called Quibble Spear. That's Q-U-I-B-L-E Sphere, S-P-H-E-R-E. You roll through 40 different levels of increasing difficulty, avoiding several obstacles, and using power-ups to get to the end of each level. So this is one of those neon polygon games that you wouldn't think is a genre, but it really is becoming a genre in itself. This, I assume, is because you can make these graphics relatively easy using tutorials instead of having to buy Unity assets. And while there's nothing wrong with this game, and it looks actually pretty good, there's also nothing right really with this game. It's got such a unappealing visual aspect to it that even as I'm watching an editor that seems to be included, that would look like it could add a lot of life to a game like this, the main gameplay mechanic just does not satisfy. It's 15% off for $1.69. At that price, it's not a big mistake. It's just, I just don't get it. I just have seen too many other games like it, then it's not standing above the crowd. Let's see. All I really need to do right now is just continue to play. See, we've got a basically, I would say, asset flip, very low effort, Minecraft-esque clone called Video Game Construction Set on Steam. It doesn't look blocky like Minecraft, it's just looks like it is basically just a lot of random assets that you can put into make your own game. It also, I'm starting to wonder if maybe some of these games that have code built into them or encoding built into them might simply be bringing up simplified versions of Unity or Unreal, because this looks like you're straight up changing the code in something like a Unity or Unreal compiler. But Video Game Construction Set is not really the right description for this, and having this being sold on Steam is, I think, the wrong thing. I don't feel like the encoding and programming languages should be sold on Steam, because in the same way I don't like RPG Maker, I don't like the idea of
Patented my code.
Go ahead and play all these. Video game construction site is 20% off for $15.99. I'll leave it at that. Gematsu has an article, Shironiko, that Shironiko new project announced for Switch. That's Shironeko. An action RPG is due out in 2020 in Japan. It's a giant whale flying in the sky that's mechanical. Is the single image thumbnail that was on the trailer. Now the trailer's playing, but of course being a Japanese trailer, it's going to take its sweet time to get to the point where it actually shows you anything. Now I'm seeing a island and waterfalls and turret, and it all looks very pretty, but it very possibly this is just a cutscene. And now I'm seeing the sky whale come out of the water and go into the air, and it has like an entire island on its back, and that was the entire trailer. Yeah, so this is the earliest of the earliest announcements that a Japanese developer could get away with, and we see it so often. So often where the developers trickle out bits of information to try to get the hype up way too early. 2020 is when this game is coming out, so it is planned at least 2 years from now. And I really believe that 6 months is the furthest out you should even announce a game. Particularly if it's a new IP. Nobody's going to be asking about Shironeko new project because it's probably not based on anything or the continuation of anything. I didn't play that right. Did not play that right at all. If I had done this and that first, I would have had 2 more grubs. Although maybe I don't want grubs. Actually, it doesn't matter anyways. This guy's gonna kill them all anyways. PC Gamer has quite a quote mine here, which is quite the quote. I don't even know if this is a quote mine. Indie is bigger than ever, and also it is dead, says Vlambeer's Ramil Ishmael in a conversation with Mike Bithell at Develop Brighton. So it sounds like this is British humor being potentially taken literally. That British dry wit being taken literally by United States people. It's kind of an interesting argument whenever to say. It's kind of the God is dead argument. That's always an interesting argument to make, but Indies isn't dead. No way. It is bigger than ever, certainly, but it's not dead. It might be also slightly shifting in what people call indies. I wouldn't be surprised if people start to say, well, an indie game is a game that is just slightly not as good as a AAA game. And that's not really where indie games should line up. In my mind, there are AAA games that are done by publishers and developers. There are AA games that are done by publishers and developers. Usually a AAA game is done by an in-house developer that is owned by the publisher, where a AA game might be a solo project and they collected or hired a publisher later. Like Gearbox Publishing would be a good example of that, where We Happy Few made that game. The developers We Happy Few made that game kind of separate from Gearbox Publishing, and then got Gearbox Publishing in there. And I would probably put we have a few in the AA category. I didn't say single A categories are
Suffer as the wild
known
suffer.
AAA quality developers and quality games that simply don't have a publisher or any funding behind it, so they're smaller. So Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice might be considered an A tier in this category. I'm making up in my head as I speak, because I think that game was self-published, but it was published by Ninja Theory, and thus it looked really good. I would also say that my personal definitions of AAA, single A, and AA are very much fluid, and so I'd probably put Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice as a AA title, where I would say something like Lara Croft Temple of the Osiris is a single A game because it's not really going for realistic graphics, and it is published by Square Enix and made, but it's one of those small. It's an indie game not made by a real indie developers, so it's slightly better than what an indie game is. My point there that I'm trying to make as I'm dancing around thoughts is that indie games in general should be less than even Lara Croft in the Temple of Osiris in visual appeal and quality. It should be something along the lines of a mobile game, maybe slightly better than a mobile game. That should be where as much as their budget can handle. So when I look at games like that, there's still tons of them, and tons more coming. See, I need Shaman victories, Rogue and Warrior victories. Alright. I probably need to go back and just double check that I've done all the talent bars too. I'm pretty sure I've done them, but I can't be 100% sure. Yeah. It's been a bad week for me as far as sleeping, so I wouldn't be surprised if I accidentally totally forgot to do something. We have a game on Steam called Gaze at Maze. And see, this is a MS Paint looking graphics game. This is a game that I would classify as an indie in that category, but a very low quality indie. It's 40% off for $1.19 and an unimaginative title, so no reason to talk about that anymore.
Begin for Doomhammer.
We have a game called Yarit, Y-A-H-R-I-T. It's a pixel art local multiplayer brawler. This is the Smash Brothers-esque games that I've been seeing a lot of lately. To try to be fair to Yarit, it looks fine. Its pixel art graphics make sense. It kind of looks, when you get to the 8-bit pixel art style, it kind of looks like an old Atari NES game. I don't know if it was on Atari or not. Where was it just called Battle? I'm trying to think if I can remember the name of it. Joust was the name of it. It looks like Joust a little bit, but Joust wasn't particularly a good game, so take that for what it's worth. Yarit is 10% off for $2.69 until there can be one good, like, known entity for there needs to be a known entity for a Smash Brothers game, Smash Brothers clone on PC. Until we can find that, until the fighting game community can say, yes, it really is this game. Is it Blade Strangers or is it some other game? There's been so many. There's just in my head right now, a big ball of confusion in the market as far as which one is the fighting game community really going to care about and be protective of, and which ones are just going to be. What did this say? This just restored 3 health. Yeah, that one have restored me health anyways. I should know what this card does. I should know what they all do at this point, but I don't. Yeah, it's really hard to even wishlist and look at a multiplayer only fighting game. Since I don't play multiplayer only games, it's pretty easy. Next game is called Crooked Waters VR. It looks like it's a pirate. 2018, sticking to the year of the pirates. Whereas I thought 2019 was going to be the year of the vampires. And I'm pretty sure that's not what's going to happen at this point. So this VR pirate game has a major problem in that it's multiplayer, online multiplayer only, and it's early access and it requires a virtual reality headset. It's 20% off for $15.99. You're just not going to ever have enough players to play this game. Sea of Thieves doesn't even require a headset, and they're having trouble finding enough players, in my opinion. Like, restore a bunch of health. Don't need to do that. Restore a minimum full taunt. But, like, what am I trying to do right now? Am I trying to just play victory conditions? I think that's what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to win. PC Gamer has an article. Hacknet is free and yours to keep till tomorrow. So it's free to try on Steam. So if you want a free game, I think Hacknet is a hacking simulator cryptology game. I have several of them. I wanted to do a whole series on them. Since I have a programming background, there's slight interest there. I think I probably own Hacknet already, but if I don't, I will certainly get it for free because I have no special desire to have my fans in one way or another support me just for all that money to end up in Valve's pocket. So if I was to ever do like a Patreon or something, there's really no reason why I wouldn't want to keep some of that money and pay some real bills and have a real income. And one way to pay the bills, certainly for anybody, is to avoid spending money on video games. Next game we have on Steam is called Robots 2 Unknown World. It's from the Ghost RUS developer / publisher troll that has been flooding Steam for, let's see, at least since September 2017. Like, there's so many games that they've released, and the number of games hasn't caught people's attention. The names of the games, some of their games had to have been flagged at some point, and yet Valve didn't consider them straight up trolling. So the question of what Valve thinks is straight up trolling is still very much this open question about. I really don't know what they mean by that. Like, speaking specifically about this game, Robots 2 Unknown World, it is a extremely low effort asset flip first person shooter. Just awful. It's 40% off for $2.39. they're not even like trying for achievements. There's only one achievement, which I guess having one achievement that you get very easily might be a better game to get more games at 100% completion on your profile for whatever little that's worth, compared to a game with 100 achievements. Like, depending on, I suppose, it really just comes down to what ridiculous, unimportant metric do you care about. Let's see. Next game we have on Steam is a mostly negative game that came out July 13th, with its overall ratings mixed at 63%. It's at 27% for the last 30 days. It's a game called Out of Reach, a survival open-world multiplayer crafting PvP game. And this graphics look fine to me on this game. I think the problem is all of these survival games do the exact same thing, have trouble finding player base, have trouble finding and maintaining servers. It looks to me like this is a medieval-esque survival game. It pushes you and allows you to build forts and become a pirate also. So seems like there's just a lot here that you could like. It's 15% off for $12.74. I want to see what the negative reviews are on this game. Why it's so negative.
Thrall versus Anduin. The light shall bring
here we have a review, and another one bites the dust. They just went from update 0.34 straight to 1.0. They lost interest, I'm sure. I know everyone else did. And so this is the problem with the early access tag, is that it's become a indicator of poor quality games, and so now poor quality games are trying to get out of early access. Suppose this is in the right direction though. Like, if you're forcing companies to actually say, we shouldn't release our game on Steam in early access, we should wait till it's a finished product.
Greetings, friend.
That is the right move. Out of Reach looks really, really good looking though. It's the only game from this developer, however. And I imagine it's just not supported, and the trailer I'm seeing is kind of not representative of what you would really experience. Next game we have is called Brath, B-R-A-T-H, Brain and Math. It seems like it's some kind of strategy where seems like it's just matching things. Or maybe it's matching two cards, and then maybe you're right-clicking to change what the target is. So you have to match, say, a square and a square, and then from matching the square and square, you have to right-click until the square and square happens. This is a Unity one-screen game, but I would applaud it and give it more credit because it looks good. It has a actual background and a picture. In fact, the graphics of the parts of the game that aren't the background look worse and fuzzy compared to the graphics in the background, which probably means the graphics in the background were purchased or pre-made. This doesn't look horrible though. 12 achievements, so it's not an achievement game. 33% for $2. I think though, there is a danger of this game just being too expensive for its own good. It's described as a small math memory game designed to be something like an age of free cell on your computer. It's basically innovated classic concentration games. Just gonna keep on playing. There's 6 game modes. The first one is Breath. You need to find 2 cards. Given a sum target must match the target result. New target result is generated every move, which means you'd have to know what's under the cards to start off with. So I assume every round of a game like this starts with showing you all the cards, which I don't have the greatest memory, so I imagine doing something like that would be a nightmare for me. Let's see. The next mode is Breath X. The numbers are multiplied instead of added in Breath. Then there's Classic Concentration, which is just find 2 matches. And then there's Concentration X. You need to find the pairs of cards that must match the target card. Target card is updated every move. Again, I assume. Breath for kids. Move limitations is off. Card variants are limited to the numbers of 0 and 5. And then Concentration for kids. This is a game that I kind of want to applaud and say, the only thing that's doing it slightly iffy is it has 12 achievements with letters on it, but unless it has 26 achievements with letters on it, you can't spell out the entire world, so it's an entire word on your profile, and so that's not really the achievement things that sometimes get done, the shenanigans people do with achievements. Let's hit this. End the turn. Yeah, Breath is a great example of a game that should be a programmer's first game to put on Steam. It's not a finished product. It's an indie game. It's an indie game that looks good enough to make sense. They're asking $2, maybe a little too expensive there, but it's not bad. Simple game, simple rules, just with polish, and one assumes good programming. Unfortunately, I can't really reward this game with a suggestion or a wish list for myself because my memory's so bad. But I would love to see Breath be the worst game on Steam. And by that I mean I'd love to see so many other games not allowed on Steam for being just way too low quality. But then also I don't want to be the voice of censorship, so I guess we have to live with the bad quality games. Moving on. Next game we have on Steam is called Castle Must Be Mine. It's a VR game. It seems like you're standing over a animated 3D forested area doing tower defense. So tower defense where you're not even in on the action, you're hovering above in VR. Not the way I think anybody ever wants to play a tower defense game, if anybody even wants to ever play a tower defense game. On top of that, Castle Must Be Mine is $15.99 with no discount, so it's expensive even for a VR game. And I see nothing in this that is interesting or makes sense. I'm trying to scroll down and see the languages, but it says it's English only. Thought maybe it was a cheap Chinese game for a second. I need to play casual. Like, if I'm gonna win with the shaman, I probably need to play wild and casual. Let's see. PC Gamer has an article. The Dark Souls Remaster patch improves security against cheating during online multiplayer, which is probably a great thing because I don't think people on Dark Souls Remastered were having the greatest of times because of hackers. Why Dark Souls Remastered wasn't a better game on release is very questionable, certainly. It feels like if they were going to remaster it and release it, they would have put more effort into it and done a better job. But they didn't, so what can you say? Let's see. Gematsu has an article, Nelki and the Legendary Alchemist coming to the West for the PS4, Switch, and PC this winter. I think we probably already heard this story. The only possibility though is I'm thinking of a different game, a different anime game with alchemist characters in it, since it seems to be in vogue ever since Full Metal Alchemist, which was quite a few years ago.
Well played.
It's not super hyper popular. There's never, I think, one entire season of Alchemist. Only shows.
That's not a valid target.
Yep, and I've lost. I'm looking at the opening animation here, and it's small and square, which makes me think that it's probably a Vita upscale. Oh, actually, this video is showing some of the previous Altair, the Atelier games, A-T-E-L-I-E-R. So I don't think the trailer I looked at has even done anything. Let's see. And YouTube suggesting Atelier series explained for beginners, and that's probably what I need to look at and catch some of this. I probably spoiled the ending of Nier Automata to me. I kind of knew what most of the endings were, however, anyways. So I went online and let's play this Overload deck. Which will be easier, playing casual or doing this? I think casual is still easier. So I looked up every single ending. It gave me certainly more information about how it's not really realistic if I was to play Nier Automata, which I do want to do, to try to get every single ending. Most of the endings, they're revolve around simply leaving an area and getting a text response that says, well, you found this one place where the game just cannot continue, therefore
Hello, Wanderer.
Therefore the game ends. And you could probably pretty easily save scum and get all the endings before the final ending that asks you to delete your save file, but it's probably not worth it to go through all that effort. But you still do need to play Nier Automata, probably to the point where it asks you to delete the save file, and if you haven't gotten that point and said yes, then you probably should continue playing. Next game we have on Steam is called The Spectrum Retreat, which this is a game that was slightly hyped up. Certainly, it's been talked about more than a lot of other games before it came out. It's a narrative-driven puzzle where you're going to do some color spectrum elements, mixing and merging. It's one of these puzzle games that honestly isn't going to even be easily explained until you're in it and you're going through tutorial first levels of it. But it totally is a game I wanted to play. It's out now. It's probably on my wish list already. It's $12.99. It's totally possible that Spectrum Retreat is not a good game. Puzzle games are iffy, certainly. They can be great, they can be awful. Let's see. I could have played this. But yeah. So Spectrum Retreat is probably the only game that this week that's also been a game I've heard about before the point. So if I was doing the old thing I used to do, and I imagine what most gamers do, which is only be interested in games that I've heard about from the mainstream video game media, Spectrum Retreat would have been the only game I was even slightly hyped about this week. That being said, maybe that's the right way, because, you know, I don't really remember most of the games that I wishlist and I'm hyped about. They really are just going into the wishlist for the reason that I will probably never purchase them, because they'll probably never be on sale again, or if they are on sale, I'll look at them a second time and the reviews will still not be there 2 years later, or it'll just not be worth the money. I suppose when I'm looking at games during a summer sale or a Steam sale, if I'm looking at a game and I'm saying, you know what, this game actually isn't worth it, I need to probably put that in a different list, and from that different list determine my desire to remove it from the wish list and move on, because my wish list is ever growing. It's got like 2,000 games on it. That's not, I don't think there's 1,000 games on that wish list that I really would get around to playing or really would want. Maybe about 1,000. A lot of the AAA games certainly I certainly do want, but then there's also a decent collection of games that are easily forgettable. Let's see. There we go. We've got a game on Steam called Cricket Captain 2018. I'm not sure anybody who actually plays cricket wants to play it on computers, because cricket is such an extremely long game that anybody who watches it and plays it, I think, has all of their time taken up with that in the first place. So I don't really know how to judge this as a person who only knows the barest minimum amount of information about cricket. So I can say this looks like a decent graphic game in the few graphics it shows, but I imagine the vast majority of this is just screenshot Excel sheet management, which that's what I'm mostly seeing, is just managing stats and players. Let's see, there's 79 Steam achievements for this game, which seems a little high. It's 10% off for $22.49. That was a mistake. I should have done this first. Okay.
Elements guide me.
This. Yeah, so there's really nothing. I'm just not the person to really criticize Cricket Captain 2018. I won't be wishlisting it, of course. PC Gamer has an article. Community Farm is a 24,000 tile Stardew Valley map for 10-person multiplayer. kudos to modern Sergeant Pickles. So it's a huge map for 10 players to play in Stardew Valley and farm if people are still into Stardew Valley. I really don't know if they are, in all honesty. It's seems like it's
What to do?
very possibly a dead hyped game that's only getting mentioned by, you know, video game journalists who are still obsessed with it. Video game journalists who are still obsessed with like Twin Peaks and other games like that. And certainly I was like that in the old days too, about video games, talking about like Super Mario Brothers decades later, and now still probably talking about Super Mario Brothers. I think the hype needs to die down for a game relatively after like 6 months of it coming out, and then you can come back and be hyped about it being nostalgic somewhere around somewhere around 5 years. Yeah, I think there should be like between 6 months after release and 5 years after release, just a period of quietness on that game. And then when you get to the 5-year anniversary, you can think, oh yeah, 5 years on, how is this game going? When you get to the 10-year anniversary, you can think, yeah, now's the time for a remaster. I'd love to replay that. And then 10-year anniversaries, 20-year anniversaries, 30th anniversaries. Like every 10 years, a game can come back, you can play it again. I feel like some gamers play games at least once a year, and that seems a little too much to me. It seems a little crazy. Let's see, this, and this. We have a game on Steam called Battlefield Armor. It looks like it's a asset flip tank game. Yeah, doesn't seem like it has enough polish on the graphics, nor does it seem like there's anything in the tank field. You're seeing I'm looking at a very ridiculous scenario right now where there's like 3 or 4 tanks within a 100-yard radius of each other shooting at each other, which is just not how it would ever happen. Like, you don't do tank on tank battles. I suppose this is like simplified Chinese only game, so there's no English, so I don't even have to worry about it. It's $8 even for this game. It's not worth 50 cents in my opinion. Let's see. Next we have what looks like walking simulator. They're saying it's a full motion video game, puzzle and dark adventure indie horror game. It's called Yeti Orig, which is also the developer and publisher's name, which inherently I think Steam just needs to step in and go, no, you can't call your business the same as the game. It's just a bad policy. Job's done. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of people that actually do fill out the paperwork, the local permits and paperwork, and say, and name their company after their game. So then Steam is really in no place to say, no, you can't use this name if the government say, yes, you can. The thing here is nothing looks awful. This looks like it could be as high of quality as Vanishing of Ethan Carter. It's not full motion video though, in the sense that it's people So if they're using full motion video to say it's not still images, I guess that's true. That's really not in question nowadays, however. That would have been a question back in the days when Myst originally came out, because that was still images for the most part. Let's see. Yeti Orog is 10% off for $2.69. I'm not sure I can justify wishlisting this game. It's the first game from this developer. I guess I'll be generous. The thumbnail's not great, but the graphics do look good enough to at least see if somebody else is willing to give it a try and play it.
I told you so.
Let's go. Play Protective. Next game we have on Steam is called Mecha Tokyo Rush. This is a platformer, like Mega Man-esque game. Platforming shooting.
Is someone injured?
It's with a bunch of graphics that aren't very high quality, in my opinion, and they're kind of around, going in every different direction. So let's see.
I told you so.
Play this.
Guide me.
Yeah, Mecha Tokyo Rush does not look like it's an interesting enough or well-made enough game to interest me. It's free to play, so the price is right, I suppose. But yeah, it's just not visually appealing. Nor do I really feel like the Mega Man series is actually a great series. I like the idea of Mega Man in theory, where you're taking on 8 enemies or 9 enemies and then getting their abilities, and then you might take on, in some of the Mega Man games, I think you take on another 8 or 9 enemies. Let's see, what am I trying to do here? Let's just do this. And then do
Elements
that.
guide.
Job's done.
Yeah, and then after you defeat the enemies and collect the abilities, you take on the final boss. But the platforming and the platforming sections of Mega Man, which are the main majority of the game, never look great. And the fighting sections don't have an amazing fighting mechanic. I think what you have to kind of do is, if I was going to make a Mega Man series, I would get rid of the platforming and the fighting. I'd say, let's take the general concept. It's a robot. It can take on the abilities of each boss it beats. Let's try to do something along the lines of, I would say, a Bayonetta style game. Fast-paced. Now, I don't want to probably put it as close to a Nier Automata robots, where the androids look like humans totally, but also I wouldn't want just a bulky blue armor suit, so I want to go something a little bit different, probably cyberpunk. I'd want it to be 3D like Bayonetta and fast-paced and running through different areas, and then in some sections when you're taking on some bosses, make it a side-scrolling, fast-paced running platformer, but don't spend too much time in that. And then when you get to the boss, 3D arena, take on the boss. They have bullet hell-esque attacks. I would assume that's what I would put in there, and that would be what I would want to do with Mega Man. If I was the person put in charge of it. why I would be the person put in charge of Mega Man. There's no reason that would ever happen, but whatever. Moving on, Gamasutra has an article. The former creative director James Ohlen, O-H-L-E-N, has retired from BioWare after 22 years. I think you have to say that this is pretty much a retirement at 22 years. There's probably not a big difference for working at BioWare for 22 years than working at BioWare for 30 years. Like, if it were a union job, 30 years might mean a lot more of a pension, a lot more of retirement, but I bet there is no real difference there. He was the creative director and lead designer on Star Wars The Old Republic and Knights of the Old Republic. I think BioWare is kind of just the shell of itself, and I wouldn't be surprised if we, in less than 6 months, hear tales of him starting a new studio and developing a whole new game. Although it's not probably going to have the Star Wars license, so it's going to have to be something spiritually inspired by Knights of the Old Republic. But even if that is the case, that will get a lot of people's attention. Let's see. He also played a large role in the development of the Dragon Age series and the new upcoming IP Anthem. And see, I could totally see the thing about Anthem being this issue
Job's done.
where Anthem doesn't really look like it's a great game. So yeah, that makes sense. Geez, if I just had the ability to cast a spell. Okay. Play this, and then do this, and we'll get rid of that one, that one, do that. Let's see. It says Owen discussed his departure on Twitter, mentioning he still serves as founder and lead at Arcanum Worlds, which was with another former BioWare creative director, Jesse Sky, a publishing company focused on building Dungeons and Dragons adventures. Nothing really super surprising here. The only thing I need to do is keep James Owen's name in my head, because I saw this announcement mentioned many times, more than it felt like it should have been mentioned. So I'm thinking maybe somebody else has left BioWare, which that means something a little different at that point. Didn't see that coming. Gamasutra has weekly jobs roundup. Let's go through this. They're looking for an experienced game developer at Square Enix in Tokyo, Japan. So if you speak Japanese and can work in Japan and are Japanese, basically, you could probably take that job. I don't think anybody else need apply. Like, while they may hire you, they won't keep you that long if you don't integrate into their culture, which you'll never integrate into their culture fully. Rogue or warrior, unless you're Japanese. Maybe if you were half Japanese, but even then, half Japanese are heavily, like, discriminated against. So yeah, let's come over here, play Tempo Rogue, come back and see if we can get a ranked victory. If you want to be a weapons artist at Digital Extremes in Ontario, Canada, there's a job. If you want to be an international community manager at Rockstar Games in London, England, there's a job. If you want to be the game director at Tilting Point in New York, there's a job. I don't know what Tilting Point is, so I'll look that up. if you want to be a senior game designer at Deck 13 Interactive, there's a job in Frankfurt, Germany. I don't know what Deck 13 does either. So, tilting point is what? Go to the website. What games have they made? Wow, looks like just a bunch of mobile games that you wouldn't even have heard of. Or even if these aren't mobile games, these are, I'm looking at 8 pictures of games I've never heard the names of and don't look interesting. Of course, if it's your first job in the game industry, take it. Like, you gotta start somewhere. And then Deck 13, let's see what their website has to offer. Let's do this. And in return, Deck 13 apparently made the Surge. Let's see. The Suffering, the Order 99, Venetia. Venetia, I remember that game. I saw a speed run through that. Transocean, Walk in the Park. Let's see. Venetia was a game that looked slightly interesting. It's kind of old, if it's the game I'm thinking about. Maybe this isn't the game I'm thinking about, though. Yeah, it's a mostly positive game at 78%.
Too soon.
See, and that, for me personally, is why I like to look at job listings, is because there's a decent chance that that I will run into a game or two from a developer that's kind of old. And then I can fill in any gaps I might have mentally. Moving on, Gematsu has an article. Punchline Cheermancy Edition has been announced. Let's see. The Cheermancy Edition costs $100 on the PS4, PS Video. It includes the Punchline for PlayStation 4, PS Vita, the Collector's Box, and a bunch of other swag, basically. The question is, what is Punchline? Punchline is due out for the PS4, PS Vita, and PC in North America and Europe this summer.
Nice to meet you.
Here we go.
Let's keep on playing. See, Punchline sounds like it's a game where you're doing stand-up comedy, but I don't think that's what it is. And yeah, it doesn't seem like it's that. It seems like it's some kind of visual novel game. Maybe it's a visual novel game. Yeah, it's more of an anime visual novel game. So maybe maybe in the storyline somewhere it makes sense that this is a makes more sense about what this game is. But I haven't heard about Punchline at all, and I've been covering a decent amount of games from Japan. Seems like I still miss out every now and then.
Chill out.
Here we go.
Everything you can. Moving on, Gematsu has Etrian Odyssey X Adventures of Arcadia Classic Classes trailer. So, a new release for a new trailer for Etrian Odyssey X that's been dubbed Adventurers of the Arcadia, which may be the subtitle of the game, maybe not. Maybe that's just the name of the trailer. It could be either. In the trailer, they're showing off a couple of characters, 2 characters specifically, and it looks like it's mostly a grindy JRPG game. So whoever the characters are, I don't even think you see them on screen. In fact, this might be a mobile game. They're putting all the gameplay in tiny squares in the middle of this trailer. So I imagine this is like a PS Vita game. No, it's for the 3DS. It's coming out August 2nd in Japan. And see, that explains it. They have nothing visually appealing to show as far as the gameplay, so they have some kind of fancy backgrounds on the sides to distract you from the actual gameplay. This is actually a literal attempt to distract the audience in your trailer. Let's just play this anyways.
Here we go.
So many Vita and 3DS games that have fancy single animations, single character animations, and it just never goes any further than that. It's like the whole game is not worth playing, but that one animation might catch your attention and trick you into buying the game. Moving on, Gematsu has an article, Memories Off, Innocent Fillet for the Switch. Launches October 25th in Japan. This is almost certainly another visual novel. Yes, it's according to the tags, it is. It's coming to PS4, Vita, and PC on March 29th. More and more we're going to see visual novels come to the Switch, and eventually we may have some conversation about that. Let's see. If I return this and then play this and then do this and do this, that's a victory. We've got a game on Steam called Just Rush, R-U-S-H. It says it's an action simulation racing sports game. I feel like there's been a game called Rush on Steam already. Apparently we have a win streak going on, so let's just stick with the win streak until we lose. We still have plenty of time. And see, if Rush is supposed to be like a hyper-realistic Pilot Wings game, it kind of looks like that. I could see giving it a try. Graphics look pretty good. The gameplay looks like it's what you expect. Seems like it's mostly around skydiving, but you could put a decent number of wingsuit skydiving mechanics. Yeah, they're wingsuits, not just regular skydive things. It has single player, it has multiplayer and online multiplayer. It requires virtual reality. Man, I was going to suggest, and I was gonna wishlist Rush, and then I saw it needed VR. This game is 15% off for $15 and $16.99. However, thanks to my new plugins, I can look at this, and the current lowest price is actually $4.99 at the Humble Store, and it was historically at $0.00 on itch.io on 5/13/2017. Interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a different game called Rush on itch.io. It's not the same game. where I do kind of believe it might be considerably cheaper on the Humble Bundle store. So yeah, get those enhanced Steam plugins and Steam database plugins. Get as many Steam plugins you can put on your browser. Get them and use them to save yourself some money. Next game we have on Steam is called Operation Thunderstorm. It's an action violent game. It looks to me like it's a very old game. It says it came out May 31st, 2011. And that explains why it's at a 4:3 square ratio instead of 16:9. It looks like it was a Dune clone of some sort. I don't know how you could justify, however, purchasing this game now and playing it. It's not a game that feels like it's historically relevant, and I don't think very many people are going to have nostalgia for it either. So I'm glad, I guess I'm forever glad that there are people out there that are putting out their old games on Steam so you can buy them if you want them. But I'm not sure how many people are going to buy them. Let's see. The developer who made this game is putting out a ton of games at the same time, by the way. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this game up. They, on July 13th, put out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different games with apparently no oversight. At least it seems like there's no oversight from Steam. You can just put out 9 games on the exact same day and flood the account. The majority of the games they put out are the Art of Murder series, which are all 20% off for $3.99. There's also a Chronicles of Mystery series that has 3 games, and Chronicles of Mystery that came out July 18th, 2009 is rated 71% popular. So seems like that was the only game by this City Interactive SA that had been released for Steam, and I guess they finally decided to put the rest of the things, or they got the rights to put the rest of their games on Steam. Let's see, we can also, I guess, see if they've published anything more than what they put out. No, not really. The other military-esque game they released is the Royal Marines Commando. It seems like they have a whole niche of these type of games. And they don't look horrible, but also I'm not gonna wishlist the military ones at the very least. That's not my style. I heard a rumor that Wolfenstein 2 did very poorly. They're saying, or they're speculating on PC. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, a lot of people, like, a lot of the video game industry promoting and happy with Wolfenstein for them, like, hating Nazis. Like, the Wolfenstein series didn't always hate actual real Nazis, and applauding them like they're actually making any political statements. But the mainstream video game media also doesn't buy games, nor do they seem like they really represent the purchasing community anymore. And as a person who considers themselves more closer to the regular video game purchasing community, I didn't buy Wolfenstein 2, and it had nothing to do with political statement. It just didn't look like it was an amazingly good game. It looked like a game that I could put off for a while. And I still want to play Wolfenstein 2, but I had just recently played 1, and 1 was alright, but not amazingly good. Wolfenstein 3 3D, when it came out, was by far much more impactful. Doom, having relatively come out at the same time as Wolfenstein 1, or maybe between Wolfenstein 1 and Wolfenstein 2, there's a lot of room there where you could have keep on playing this.
Here we go.
There wasn't a lot of time to switch between playing Doom and Wolfenstein 1 and Wolfenstein 2 and Wolfenstein The Old Blood, which was that middle game that I'm sure didn't help sell as much either. And now they're trying to put out the other Wolfenstein side game, which is The Daughters in the 80s, and I imagine that won't sell amazingly well either. Not that I want it to fail, it's just I think they are probably flooding the market with Wolfenstein games when they should have taken a little bit more time and made sure they got a good quality trilogy out of it instead of 6 games. And ZeniMax in general, ZeniMax, Bethesda, it's all the main company, has that issue certainly, where if Fallout 4 had been a better, more polished game, then we would have enjoyed that, and they wouldn't be trying to now rush out with Fallout 76. Let's see. I don't think I started a timer. No, I didn't. So we've probably been going an hour, and after this game where I lose, this would be the right point to end this recording and start a new one. Like, just
The light protects me.
might as well keep on trying,
Here
I guess.
we go.
Gamasutra has an article. App Loving launches a mobile publisher called Lion Studios, not to be confused with Lionhead Studios. This is kind of inside baseball for the video game industry, since App Loving seems to only make mobile games. Like, they founded a new studio to take on the task of publishing and promoting mobile games and apps. That's too much industry talk, frankly. Eurogamer has an interesting article. More than half of parents let their kids play 18+ games, according to the results of a new survey from childcare.co.uk that surveyed more than 2,000 parents in the UK and found that more than half of them let their children play video games for over 18s without supervision or knowledge of the game beforehand. How that is phrased is certainly going to be interesting, because, like, is this an instance where they're saying more than half of parents have found out their kid was allowed to play an 18-year-old game, or wasn't allowed to play an 18-year-old game but got his hands on one anyways, or they just didn't know the age rating system at all, the PEGI system in the UK? I didn't understand it, which I could believe that. Or more than half of their kids trust their kids and say, yeah, they can play 18-year-old games. There certainly may have been a time where I played, like, I know I played Shadow Man and I was under 18 there. And I bought that game and wasn't like age checked or verified at all. I don't think. And I don't think I was with... No, I had to be with my parents, but they may not have even been in the same store. So I got Shadow Man at Toys R Us, and I could see that maybe they let me purchase it without realizing it. There was like BMX XXX I purchased not realizing that it was XXX. I thought it just said BMX from the logo. But I think for the most part, all the games I played were under 18 until I was 18. Or maybe it's more to say, if I was playing any mature rated games, they felt like they were fine to me. Like, inherently, I think there is some problems in the UK in particular with parenting and education. Like, you don't have the massive amounts of riding after soccer games without some kind of behavioral control and parenting issues. You don't have the need or the desire to create a nanny state if there isn't a problem there. I'm not saying that inherently I know the per capita crime is higher in the UK than most countries, but it sure seems like they feel like it is. Let's see. 34% of the survey said their children spend 4 or more hours a day playing video games. They don't think they're. I don't think they're doing their homework. I disagree with the concept of homework in general, though. Like, the idea of homework is that an employee, since school is basically training for schools, who has a boss that tells you you have to work off the clock? If you have a boss like that, you should report him for wage theft, because that's really what it's coming down to. And playing video games certainly is socialization, so if you're a parent and you're aware that all the kids are playing an M-rated game, and it's an M-rated game because it has a bunch of shooting and violence, and you don't care about shooting and violence, then that's fine. And maybe more than half of the parents trust their kids. The rating system really isn't for most parents. It's for the most conservative of conservative parents. People who actually do want that level of control and censorship. More than half of the parents don't. They don't care. Remember, the UK is part of that nudity thing too, so if a game is rated M or 18 plus because of nudity in the UK, they may not care too much at all. Not to say that they inherently want their kids playing anime sex games or anything. They just probably wouldn't mind a boob or two, which is mostly all you ever get in an anime, half those anime games anyways. It is also worth mentioning that right now in the UK, and Your Gamer is just propagating this, and they're bad about propagating things like PC Gamer is, because I think they're the same company. There was a story a few weeks ago of a kid who sadly committed suicide. I heard somebody once describe it as was a victim of suicide. That's a weird way to phrase it, but whatever. There was a kid who committed suicide. They said he played Doki Doki Literature Club. Doki Doki Literature Club, I think, is rated M, PC game. It does look like it's a visual novel at the beginning, but it does turn into a more thoughtful and dark and depressing story. I seriously doubt any game ever has pushed a healthy-minded person into self-harm, but clearly this kid wasn't a healthy-minded kid, and he wasn't being properly supported and monitored. And so instead of blaming the parents for not realizing that their kid was depressed, instead of blaming schools or health services. I mean, they have in the UK the National Health Services. Maybe mental coverage and mental checks should be done, and it should be more available or enforced more. Clearly there was something wrong there, but of course the media always wants to blame the video games. So that's where I'm going to end it on that one. So that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.